Movies are like games of Jenga. If just one piece is out of place, the entire thing collapses, no matter how well built the rest of it is. Even movies that otherwise were great have been ruined by a bad decision. Here's a look at movies that were destroyed by just one scene. The Dark Knight Rises was full of little head-scratching moments, such as, if the villain's plan is to blow up Gotham after holding it hostage, why does he wait all those months to do it? Most of these you can just let slide, but the reveal of Joseph Gordon-Levitt's real identity, that's just too much. You know, Robin. Of course, in the comics, Robin's real name is Dick, or Jason, or Tim, or Damien, or even Stephanie. But apparently any of those names would have been too subtle for movie audiences, so they hit you over the head with it instead. It's like revealing this dude's name is John Aquaman or something. At the climax of Christopher Nolan's sci-fi epic Interstellar, Matthew McConaughey's pilot character falls into a black hole and lands inside a far-flung future device that lets him send cryptic messages to his daughter in the past. Or in other words, he has to use some hippy-dippy Morse code machine to save the future using, that's right, the power of love.
No!
Really? Love? That's the secret to unlocking the mysteries of the space-time continuum?
Great Scott!
There was a minute there where it looked like Ridley Scott's Prometheus was going to be one of the coolest movies ever made. But what it turned out to be was a slow exercise in cluelessness. Plenty of fans either love or hate it, but it's hard to argue about that one sequence where the characters have to avoid being crushed by a rolling spaceship. It looks tense, exciting, thrilling even, right up until you ask yourself, why didn't they just move to the side instead of trying to outrun it? In fact, the main character lives by simply rolling 3 feet. Now, if she'd only told her buddy to do the same thing, maybe we wouldn't have left the theater feeling profoundly stupider. Throughout the majority of 12 Years a Slave, the story of Solomon Northrop, a free man who is kidnapped and forced into slavery, is artfully told through brutal visuals and compelling performances. Then Brad Pitt shows up, and he speaks using whatever accent this was supposed to be, with his Brad Pitt acting and his Brad Pitt face.
My freedom is everything. The fact that I can walk out of here tomorrow brings me great pleasure.
Start walking, Brad. That would give us great pleasure. Let the Right One In is a rare kind of horror movie, a haunting character study with few loud moments or overt scares. It is, simply put, an excellent, creepy flick, but it does have one massive, unintentional belly laugh moment that kinda ruins it. Here's a free tip to any future horror movie directors. If you want to keep your audience terrified and on the edge of their seats, just skip the evil attack kittens. Kittens can't really pull off the evil thing, you know? They're just too damn cute.
I'm going to kill you!
In 1997, fans were excited at the chance to see the remastered Star Wars trilogy on the big screen. And then, this happened.
I bet you have.
In an instant, people realized George Lucas hadn't improved the series with special editions, he'd ruined it. The collective scream of distraught fans is still reverberating around the universe.
I felt a great disturbance in the Force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced.
Well, maybe not exactly silenced. Now, you can almost understand the thought process behind having Greedo shoot first, but for every revision Lucas has explained, there are at least 3 others made to the trilogy that are just random and bizarre. And none of them are more random or more bizarre than the insanely stupid Jedi Rocks dance number in the middle of Return of the Jedi. Prepare yourselves.
There's a very bad feeling about this.
I don't really have a lot of awards, to be very honest with you.
To say that Peter Parker's dance scene ruined Spider-Man 3 is a bit of an exaggeration since there's so much more wrong with the film. The misfired Sandman CGI, the underwhelming Venom, and James Franco's pie-eating performance all contributed to the flop that was Spider-Man 3. But all of that pales in comparison to Peter Parker dancing at the jazz club. Tobey Maguire's awkward hip thrusting and finger snapping as he gazes through his messy bangs play more like a bad SNL sketch than anything that ever should have made it into a superhero movie. Now dig on this. How many people choked on their popcorn when he actually said that? Because seriously, that's awful. The scene where Neo fights a crap load of Agent Smiths was supposed to be one of the major action set pieces for The Matrix Reloaded. But the second the fighting begins, both Neo and Agent Smith get replaced with CGI so terrible it makes The Sims look like virtual reality. The scene was meant to follow up the groundbreaking bullet time effects of the first movie. Instead, the botched effects proved to audiences that neither Matrix sequel would even come close to touching the original. John McClane has done a lot of wildly unrealistic things in his accidental encounters with terrorists, but none have even come close to single-handedly fighting and beating an actual fighter jet. Live Free or Die Hard is far from the best movie in the series, but it was still pretty good even after being watered down from an R rating to a PG-13 rating. That is, until the filmmakers just said F it and went to crazy town in this scene. There's the laughable ease with which a hacker takes command of the Marine jet, to the Rube Goldberg-esque way the highway perfectly falls apart to let McClane escape. The entire scene should have just stayed in the imagination of the 6-year-old who probably thought it up. Also, how is McClane able to drive a semi? You know what? Never mind, that's actually the least ridiculous thing here. With the help of a parachute, a piece of a plane, and video effects that would embarrass a high school AV club, James Bond surfs on what appears to be a 100-foot wave of Arctic water in Die Another Day. This scene has been cited as the death knell for Pierce Brosnan's Bond. It took 4 years, and the casting of Daniel Craig, for the series to redeem itself from that time a James Bond movie looked like it was ripped from a PlayStation 2 video game cutscene. But we'll never forget, your Bond died that day, Pierce. Make no mistake. Of the many things that catch blame for ruining the Star Wars prequels, Jar Jar Binks, midichlorians, almost every line of dialogue George Lucas wrote for Padme and Anakin, there is one moment that makes almost every fan cringe, no matter how dedicated. We're talking about Anakin Skywalker's charred transformation into Darth Vader. Literally the jumping off of the entire Star Wars saga. In this moment, Vader learned he's lost his wife and unborn children and had been transformed into, like, a space RoboCop. What does he do? He does this. It felt silly when it should have been tear-jerking, and a capped performance by Hayden Christensen that was so unlikable that he went from that guy poised to be this generation's Harrison Ford to the guy who was in that bank heist movie with Chris Brown and T.I. If you ever found yourself being attacked by a velociraptor, you'd probably wet your pants and run away screaming. With that in mind, it's impossible not to lose total faith in Jurassic Park: The Lost World when Kelly Malcolm, the spunky daughter of Dr. Ian Malcolm, stands her ground against one of the lethal dinosaurs by putting her gymnastic training to the test. Watching a kid hold her own against one of the franchise's nastiest villains is undeniably cool, but the way she does it, hauling off and kicking the creature through a window, is entirely unbelievable. Sure, this is a movie about dinosaurs being brought back to life, but dino fighting gymnastic skills are just a bridge too far. The Lord of the Rings trilogy's leisurely pace is part of its charm. When you watch one of these movies, you know you're setting in for a truly epic adventure. But even by those standards, the concluding chapter, The Return of the King, goes on for what seems like forever. Especially in the final act, where it seems to have like 4 or 5 endings. It's always hard to say goodbye to a great cinematic saga, so we can't begrudge director Peter Jackson for his fond Frodo farewell. Except for the scene where the hobbits frolic on top of a bed in gauzy light in slow motion. After spending all those hours with Frodo, Samwise and the rest of the gang, we want to be laughing with them, not at them. Most people have never gone to a Transformers movie expecting a sensible plot or characters worth caring that much about. We line up for these things for awesome special effects, and director Michael Bay is more than happy to deliver. Unfortunately, Bay isn't always content to just blow stuff up. Sometimes he wants to be funny too. And that's what led to the introduction of Skids and Mudflap in Revenge of the Fallen. Forget about robots in disguise. These two are racist caricatures out in the open trading on every offensive stereotype in the book. Bay later tried to throw the voice actors under the bus by blaming the characters' demeanor on faulty line readings, but no one bought it. Skids and Mudflap were even cut from the next movie in the franchise, Dark of the Moon. By the time Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull arrived in 2008, we've been waiting for a new indie adventure for nearly 20 years. Almost nothing could have killed our buzz for getting to spend another 2 hours with our favorite archaeologist. In the end, while it's no one's favorite Indiana Jones movie, most folks were willing to forgive most of its flaws. Except the infamous nuking the fridge sequence. Even in a movie that asks us to suspend our disbelief far enough to accept Indy making contact with aliens, this awful action set piece, which finds Indy miraculously surviving a nuclear test blast by using a lead-lined refrigerator as shelter, is laughable, and ranks as one of the few true missteps in a beloved franchise. The first 4 Superman movies weren't all great films by any means, but they had a certain sweetness about them that reflected the character's optimism in the comics. All that changed when Zack Snyder took the reins for 2013's Man of Steel. Although darker overtones were probably to be expected in the post-Dark Knight world, it was still difficult for many longtime fans to accept the rampant casual destruction Superman helped unleash during his battle with Zod in the final act. Even harder to accept was his decision to end the fight by snapping Zod's neck. Snyder has defended his decision repeatedly, but that plot point remains the focus of intense debate. For some fans, it undermines the entire concept of the character, and when they saw it go down in the theater, they had one unavoidable reaction: